Returning to Cosmic Space Case stories. This one's called The Golden Voyage to the Is, or Ice, sometimes called Eyes, like seeing. The opening scene would be a boat or vessel, something of a considerable size. Although I didn't explore the full extent of its interior, this was my impression, or perhaps my real self-knowledge, and it is a personal self that doesn't understand how I could know the dimensions of something I haven't explored. Everything is, and so, connected to my real self and standing real with the is, will have me play in a place of being isness too. And so I just would be and see, accessing all information simultaneously. Any questions, queries, and doubts must stem from the personal created self. Anyway, it was surely a vessel of a mixed variety of peoples, and we all seemed to get along just swimmingly. I was there in my created Kevin human form, and we were standing on a part of the vessel that was like a monitoring station. There were screens everywhere, and they were displaying scenes occurring all over the earth. They may have been connected with actual networks and feeding us these happenings, or maybe they were a little like those view screens that DUANE utilized throughout his adventures in the new books where he could see events past, present, and future. A few times I have been with guides also and have regarded events in a similar fashion, like watching them on a TV. A few experiences where the outcome wasn't as it may have been, and I had the opportunity to watch it on these view TVs, then become reinserted in the experience at a pivotal point and exact a more awareness viewpoint beneficial outcome. Anyway, the scenes were that of great disasters, the planet racked with apocalyptic type events. But here we were, safe aboard our vessel at this point. Lindsay was here in the monitoring station and was indeed the only one I visibly recognized, and this was the only point in the experience she would be here. The scene moved, and now I was at the helm of with the captain of the vessel. I'm not very versed in ship terminology, but it was the section where all the steering wheels are, the driving area. The front row seat, the big windows before us affording us the view of the sea beyond as we plowed onward through the waters. At this point, I was in the form of a robot, was in no way diminished and restricted as a robot may well have been, should one return to a robotized Earth in a future lifetime, as an example. I was assisting the captain, carrying out a few duties here and there, my personal self feeling rather delighted at being in this part of the vessel with him. Then I informed the captain we were fastly approaching a monstrous wave of tremendous proportions, but he was unconcerned and indeed gave the order to set a course for the very wave and we would meet it head on. My little robot personal head was spinning. I protested at this decision, but the captain was adamant. He had an air of knowingness about him, a powerful sense of purpose, and being that, despite my qualms, I know everything would be all right, and I had trust in this course of action. We approached the daunting wave. What preceded it was turbulent waters that half flooded the part of the vessel we were in. But I was confident that all would be well, and besides, the time for turning back was past. The mighty wave roared into sight. At the moment it should have struck the vessel, it transformed and seemed to be something else. It was more like rather a golden gateway. I couldn't really describe it, but this was the closest literal interpretation that best suited the impression as we passed harmlessly through it. The Golden Gateway, we were in a new place now, fine buildings and many peoples everywhere. No longer on our vessel, it was nowhere to be seen, and here we were. At this moment, I was with a handful of others and the captain, and I know not as to where the other people of the vessel were. I was still in the form of a robot, and now the captain had another obstacle to negotiate, it seemed. He had to battle with the champion of this place, a very powerful-looking man, his body covered with markings and designs. The fight ensued, and although I felt the captain could win with ease, he allowed himself to be bested, and there he lay, defeated. One of the individuals I was with suggested I check for a pulse, and when I reached down to do so, the captain had vanished. How he could see him and that the captain was fine, but to my robot eyes, he was gone from this place. After a while, I wandered about and came across a kind of veil that separated this place we were currently in from the physical level. We had vacated the earth and all its catastrophes. I passed through it to take a look, evidently able to do this, and perfectly safe to do so. Standing in my real self then, I perceived a new world, a reconstituted world, very vibrant and fresh, compared to the diseased planet it had been. I clunked about on my metal feet and came across lots of animals and wildlife. Some of the animals, based on their appearance, should have been perhaps more aggressive, such as the snakes I saw, but absolutely none had any tendencies or inclination to be aggressive. They were all friendly, more inquisitive of me than opposed to my presence. And here the dream would end. I did not realize that this is the culmination of the Space Case Chronicles, the end of the book, and I have 4 more pages of reading, which I'm not going to do. We'll do this in parts. So I was thinking what I could relate from my own view experience was something about the solar research vessels that, let's say, had been originally idea created about 10 years ago. And also, I was remembering being with Ronald, and I had used a backdrop, a number of backdrops on our conversations that we had done, a couple of videos, talks, and Fred was participating also. And one of the backdrops was the something like being on the board, the head of the ship or a plane at the control station. And there was others that were had a natural environment rock stairway, so to speak, 5 or 7 stairs. I think there were 7 stairs on the platform that, and it was environmental scenery and the sky and the sun in the distance behind. And there was another one on a plane that was similar also. So I'm thinking that this is a place that we all arrived at and are relating to. It's a suggestion that this adventures that we're describing are actually experiences that we also are sharing or having, even if we don't recognize them, such as being on the solar research vessel or some very similar as to the story that was, and the adventure here of Kevin's recollection. I'm reminded also when we were talking the other day that Kevin said or wrote that he had an experience where he knew that if he went back to that same place later at some other time, his interpretation or his recognition and description of the events would be quite different. Could be because of his awareness, recognition will be improved sight. And that's what the process of being a seer unfolds for all of us. So when we hear others talking, we share that, or our vision of what we're seeing and sharing can be new if we listen to a story a second time, as an example. So I just ended, and without going into this too much, I wanted to say to Ronald about his political reference of certain peoples and describing preferences and so forth, let's say, that the fact is that all of them are in the inhibition restriction mode. And so the mention of, there was a comment that was, we are going to be okay. Well, that's true, but we were wondering what we meant in his reference, because he meant the United States and the control group of the country and so forth. That's certainly part of that. And all of these things are always open to interpretation and contested point of view. So that being the case, is to share this way, that we are sharing here without contesting a person's point of view. It's also that we are actually sharing the experience with our own interpretations of them. That's the second part. And the third part is how much of it is, or should we individually grasp for our own process of being a seer. And they're all, I think, these are the three things that we humans will say have to access with our awareness. So it's very important to see these things with ever, and also the broader view of them, most importantly. So I think that's it. Thank you, guys. Peter? Ronald, any comments?
Yeah. No, I'm just when I talk about is the general people that are, the average person on the street. Hopefully it'll help everyone. You never know about these things. You just have to let it play out to see what happens. And I've been weirdly drawn to these YouTube programs where these people go into purgatory. They call it hell, and I pay attention to the stories of what they go through and the messages that they receive, and then they somehow transport back out. And it's interesting that is there two types of purgatories or hell? Because one's got fire, and then we talk about the other one where it's just darkness. Maybe DUANE can dwell on that a little bit.
I would add probably hundreds of different purgatories. Thank you, Ronald, for a comment. Yeah, I could share. Today, we went out in the morning, and I'm always looking for the opportunities, and whatever happens, because they're constantly, let's say, presenting themselves, and in different ways. But some of them are very, more of the special kind, we'll say. And in this case, I was standing outside of the store, and I noticed I was about to go in to help someone, but I stood out there for a second, and then this man showed up with a guitar carrying on his back. He's well dressed, and I started to walk to him because anyway, he came down the stairs, so he was coming right by me, and we talked, and I found out that he plays here for his job, and he's going to with his guitar, and there are a lot of musicians that do that here. And I told him all things that maybe some of the things I've done in music, and so we exchanged, and it was a contact, just walked right up to me almost perfectly. And I don't know what will develop with that. I told him that I make recordings with people or record them and do different things, depending. It's always spontaneous. That's the thing about it, is the being spontaneously aware, not just aware, okay, I see that, but what is the awareness of right in the moment, and you keep with it, and it's really a great, it opens up all kinds of universes can open up. It's, you know, if you're opening up another person's universe, and if you can open up, help, or see in their universe, that expands our own, of course, and it's related. So thanks now again, and everyone.